Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this one-hour webinar on changing strategies in the face of a crisis, energy transitions, and new horizons for the oil and gas. I am Miguel Moyano, the Upstream Director of ARPEL, the Regional Association of Oil and Gas Companies in Latin America and the Caribbean. Before I give this introduction, I want you to please note in the chat box on the upper right-hand side that there is a URL address sent at 10:11 a.m. This is a link to a survey that we shall ask you to please complete after the webinar is over. Please copy and paste it now in your Internet Explorer. This will only take 2 minutes of your time. Now, let me share with you a quick summary of how ARPEL reached to this event. For over 20 years, ARPEL has been addressing the expectations of external stakeholders for the oil and gas industry to reduce its contribution to the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. In 1997, ARPEL started an energy efficiency program, developing good practice guidelines and assisting its member companies to implement these practices in their operations. In 1999, ARPEL created the Climate Change Working Group to foster awareness on climate change international negotiations, as well as regional opportunities for clean development mechanism projects and the overall impact on the regional oil and gas industry. The group is active since then. In 2018, ARPEL participated of the Energy Resource Efficiency and Sustainability Task Force of the B20 in Argentina. Together with our sister organization, IOGP, ARPEL represented the interest of the international oil and gas industry and shared with key stakeholders the sector's viewpoint on how to move forward to a low-carbon economy worldwide. The recommendations of the task force were incorporated in the B20 communique, a set of policy recommendations to the governments of the member nations of the G20. Oil and gas provides 70% of the energy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Therefore, our sector is an essential partner in the sustainable development of the region. Recently, ARPEL member companies, both national and private, have openly committed to collaborate with governments, business, investors, consumers, and civil society to support the transitions to a more sustainable energy system with lower greenhouse gas emissions associated to the economic and social development of the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Following an 18-month process, the individual and collective commitments of ARPEL member companies have been displayed in the ARPEL white paper, Energy Transitions in Latin America and the Caribbean, the role of the oil and gas industry, published in January this year, which cover you can see in the slide, and you can certainly download it from ARPEL website. As part of the communication plan of this white paper, ARPEL had prepared an upper executive panel session for the ARPEL conference that was going to take place in Lima last week. Given the conference was postponed due to COVID-19 crisis, we decided to organize this webinar with the same moderator and high-level speakers that had agreed to be at the Lima event. Now, please let me introduce the moderator of this webinar. Elena Morettini is a geoscience advisor with over 20 years of international experience on executive positions in the upstream oil and gas industry. As energy transition specialist, Elena was fundamental in the elaboration of the B20 communique in 2018. Later, ARPEL was fortunate to count with Elena, her vast knowledge and enthusiasm as part of the task force of ARPEL member companies that developed the energy transitions white paper released last January. So without further ado, I'll pass on the microphone over to Elena. Elena?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much, Miguel, for this introduction. I hope that everybody can hear me fine. It is a pleasure to be here, and I would like to give a good morning, afternoon, or evening to all of you and welcome you to this very engaging panel of experts on energy transition facing the current oil and gas and overall society crisis. I hope you can hear me well, and I would really like to thank Arpel for opening again this space of discussion as much as they did at the end of 2018 with the whole issue of energy transition. Arpel has always been a place where communication and exchange among the Latin American and Caribbean companies has taken place, and it's a very important forum for us to discuss, especially at times of great concerns like the one that we're facing at the moment. Our panelists, as I said before, a very engaging international panel, represent the highest level of international organizations and associations, as well as integrated energy companies. So, namely, we're very pleased to have with us Tor Fiaran, who is the president of the World Petroleum Council, Silvina Alberti, who is the manager of the sustainability department of YBF here in Argentina, Julian Perez, who is the strategy and policy director of the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, OGCI, a very important initiative to which 12 of the major oil companies do participate. And last but not least, Jaime Martinez Juez from Repsol. He's the executive director of technology and corporate venturing in Repsol. We will see very interesting data presented by all of them on where we are in terms of energy transitions and the effort towards carbon neutrality that all the companies and associations are making at the moment. So as Miguel was mentioning at the beginning, 2018, we got together as companies under the umbrella of Arpel to think about a white paper on energy transitions. And basically, that space was a space of communication, best practices, and a roadmap establishment for leading out the main issues on energy transitions. Those are treated in the white paper, as possibly many of you have already seen, or if not, hopefully you will see in the short future. The main items and arguments and topics are access to energy, energy efficiency, technology neutrality, carbon capture, carbon pricing, and of course, energy integration as a whole. Methane emission is not singled out in the paper, although we will see today, and we've seen in the region, a lot of effort has been made in trying to capture leaks and measure such an important greenhouse gas. So where do we stand today? Today, we're, of course, as we all know, we're facing a very important crisis due to a tiny but very powerful coronavirus, which has basically locked us at home, regardless of where we are in the world. I think that all of us are at home at the moment. We definitely are. And that, of course, has an implication in the productivity and the global productivity, which fell of about 40%, also has another very important implication, which is what happens to the engine of that productivity, i.e. the energy needed to produce what we're producing worldwide. That energy has seen a drastic decrease, and we've seen our specific world of the oil and gas industry being completely disrupted in its recent equilibrium between supply, demand, and storage. What we've seen in the past 72 hours is basically a dramatic alteration of that equilibrium, where we have oil companies having to pay for, or companies in general, having to pay for oil being taken away and being not taken to the markets, but stored. And we've actually reached the physical limit of that storage. So that, of course, has big implications. We've seen the price going negative of the future, something that we'd never seen before, for oil at least. So the situation is a shocking one. And as Emmanuel Macron said, we're actually facing the unthinkable. In this situation of unthinkable, Arpel, I think, has the merit of sharing the space in which we can all cooperate and discuss together from your different angles how we can actually try to put forward ideas for this unthinkable situation that we're facing. And this is where the importance of all our panelists comes in with their different angles and experiences in order to somehow relieve us and help us answering several of the questions that may be very compelling in terms of energy transitions at the moment. The questions we've put forward to our panelists, I think they're ready to be shown to all of you, are basically how do we guarantee that with the current shocking scenarios, we can actually maintain the objectives, the targets, the KPIs of the energy transition strategies that we're actually developing in such a positive way throughout 2019, and we're expecting even a better development in 2020 with the Glasgow COP at the end of the year, so on and so forth. We knew very well that 2020 was going to be a key year for climate and for energy transition. So the first part of the question to our expert is indeed, have you rediscussed internally how these objectives have changed? We really hope that they haven't, but if they have, we would like to hear from you in which respect they have changed. And also, having seen that stimulus plans and financial packages from governments to help the oil and gas industry may depend on certain transparency and governance, what is your opinion on the set of documents that oil and gas companies and integrated energy companies can actually produce to transparent the numbers in favor of climate change and in favor of the commitment we all have towards energy transitions? So these are basically the two broad questions that we've asked our expert to address. And without further ado, I'll leave the floor to Tor, who I repeat is the president of the World Petroleum Council, and he will give us his view and the view, of course, of the organization on the topic. Tor, if you can unmute.
Yes, thank you, Elena. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Very good. And sorry for just being on sound today. But also thank you to our panel for inviting WPC to speak here at this important webinar at this extremely dynamic and times and environment for all of us. The world and the energy industry are these days experiencing dramatic times and considerable challenges. And we have the new challenges of the low and in some cases negative commodity prices, and also the COVID-19 virus, of course. Despite that, we still need to look forward and also think about energy transition, climate change, geopolitics, and all the issues that we share amongst us around the world. What will the recovery from this situation look like? When will it happen? How will it happen? And what will drive it? We don't know what the future holds, but I think that we have to be prepared for a new reality that might be different from the reality we were used to. So when planning the World Petroleum Congress that will take place in Houston in December this year, hopefully, we listed the most important global context issues relevant to us at the end of 2019. Today, the world and important issues are different. With the COVID-19 pandemic and the oil and gas market situation impacting product prices dramatically as the most important context issues in the short term. For 85 years, WPC has witnessed ups and downs of the oil price. As an industry, we have always managed through this, as regardless of price, there is always demand. At the moment, there is virtually no demand other than filling storage. But we have tried to listen to our 60 member countries, and they tell us that energy transition and climate impact will continue to be high on the agenda for the industry, and it will also be for WPC going forward. But it will be company and government policies that will decide on the pace and the investment levels. In our industry, innovation and technology has always been a game changer, and we should also expect that to be the case for the future in all areas of our business, also when it comes to the energy transition and issues related to that. The perception and the attractiveness of the oil and gas has for a long time been challenged in line with the increased focus on climate change effects, and we have to live with that. The great challenge for the 21st century is developing energy systems that protects the environment while advancing human prosperity. To achieve this, the energy mix must satisfy all the three key audits: reliability, affordability, and sustainability. And all segments of society, from consumers to investors, will play an important role in determining this energy mix by influencing the allocation of financial, human and political capital across different energy sources. We believe that ESG is a good way for companies to demonstrate in a transparent way the reality behind what they're doing. And allocation of capital can be influenced by industry, by governments, consumers, investors, and available technology. And this determines the energy mix and can be measured against energy audits, impacts on the environment, financial cost, and the well-being of the planet. Talking to our members, we can also see that project finance for new oil and gas initiatives will continue to be difficult. They believe that you also need to invest in a profitable oil and gas industry to help fund our energy transition. So those have to work in parallel. Many companies are also looking at green hydrogen and alcohol-based economies for the future, which all need large financial investments. And we must recognize that we still will see a fast-growing global population, and the stability of the global economy is underpinned by affordable energy as the most important thing. The World Petroleum Congress and WPC represents an area for dialogue between all stakeholders, addressing all these relevant issues of the time. We hope to see you all in Houston in December. We will have the top people from the industry, governments, the UN, and all representatives of civil society to discuss all these issues, how they're dealing with them, and the way forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Thor. Thank you very much for the reassuring words and concepts that you've presented to us, and also for touching on consumers, the aspects of civil society, the aspect of finance, which of course it's very important, especially thinking about hydrogen and the big investments needed. And indeed, very, very interesting to hear your considerations, and hopefully in December we could all be together to rediscuss this and see the advancements. So thank you, Thor, for that. And let me now pass the word to Silvina Alberti, who, as I said, is the manager of the Sustainability Department in YBF. Welcome, Silvina. The floor is yours to answer the two questions or discuss around them as you would like. Thank you very much. Okay, so Silvina is... We cannot hear you, Silvina. Is your microphone unmuted?
Yeah, no,
okay.
That's okay. Okay, hello. Thank you, Elena. Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you today. Thank you, Mario and Elena, for your kind invitation. As Elena said, I'm working for YBF Argentina. And for those of you who don't know YBF, we are producing oil, gas, and energy, contributing to meet the need of 40 million people in Argentina every day. We were born 97 years ago, focused on oil and gas. We have developed during the last 7 years a world-class unconventional operation, and we are also expanding electrical power and renewable energy business. I'd like to share with you today how we work and how we are putting low energy carbon as one of the components of the company business strategy. I think being a national level company such as we are, which is a key part of the country's economy and employment development, makes energy transition paths especially challenging. As you see, besides in Argentina, more than 50% of the energy system is around natural gas, and coal is only 2%. We are aware our country needs to scale up its 2030 mitigation efforts. We have no doubts about that. We need to move towards a clean energy system. The process, of course, is not going to be easy at all, and now we have this to face this unprecedented crisis. Argentina is, by the way, a developing country, and surely will need to develop its whole energy potential. Transition readiness implies not only vocation to produce, but financial and human resources. So How the change is going to take place exactly and how fast it is going to happen, we still don't know. But we know we need to make this happen, and we think that we from YPF can add value to this process. Being said that, I have to be clear, YPF has already embedded the climate and transition concerns in company decision making, and its transformation process to shift to an integrated energy company works in that regard. In this context, when we face the COVID epidemic and this unprecedented crisis for the sector, we're sure the challenges, of course, scales. Now, the company is absolutely focused on managing the crisis. It is focused on protecting workers and their families, and it is managing business continuity. The impact in the business is absolutely strong, but we are hardly working on laying solid foundation for recovery, and we are trying to manage uncertainties in the best way. But what were we already doing regarding transitions before the crisis to drive business resilience? Based on the business plan 2018 to 2023, and I have to pass to the other slide. We were working to reduce emissions. We had decided going to grow in new energy solutions, and we are boosting to supply of lower emission products. In order to lower our emission levels, projects include control and reduction of CO2 and methane emissions in operations, energy and resources efficiency across the organization, and the exploration of solution of carbon capture, storage, and reuse. We are recently starting to take into account carbon pricing, and our actual renewable energy accounting is 17% of our total demand of the grid. Offsetting carbon emissions, especially through a 7,000 hectares forestry project in Neuquén province, is also part of the taken actions. So our target is to get the intensity of CO2 per production unit 10% lower by 2023. We are also focusing on supplying lower emissions product to consumer, not only natural gas for our consuming and for export as the best partner for renewables, but investing in low sulfur fuels and developing biofuels business as key initiatives as well. Looking for renewables, we find the creation of a separate power company, YPF Luz, which is focused on thermal power and renewables. Manantiales Ver, our first wind farm, is already operating in Patagonia with one of the highest energy yield in the world, and 3 more wind farms are under construction. Finally, I'd like to say that looking longer in the future, we are working through YTech and YPF Ventures, investing in technologies applied to new energy solutions and ventures to foster an entrepreneurial energy ecosystem. We are also working on partnerships. I think working on different things as we lead the Global Compact Argentine network, but I cannot not mention that our former president was the chair of V20 Energy, Resource Efficiency and Sustainable Task Force during 2018. And in the coming years, we are on time. We are on time, Elena?
We are 1 minute and a half after time, but it's okay.
Okay. That's okay. We finishing. I would like to say we know we surely will need to further with our own ambitions in the next years. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Silvina, for this broad view on the activities of YPF, and I will pass the word quickly to Julian Perez, who, as I said before, is the Strategy and Policy Director of the OGCI. Julian, we don't see you very well. That is not an issue, but there's a little bit of light missing, but if it doesn't really matter. If you cannot change the inclination of your, it's okay. The floor is yours. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's better. We see you very well, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I hope that you can see my screen. Yeah, okay, perfect. So thanks a lot for welcoming us as well, and for the opportunity to have OGCI words in this important dialogue. I just wanted to briefly also introduce you to OGCI and who we are, because it might not be a fully familiar organization for all of you. So OGCI has been set up back in September 2014 at a time where actually the oil and gas industry was also facing a crisis of pricing due to the emergence of the shale oil and shale gas, as you may recall. But also the world was facing an important moment for the climate challenge, because it was just a few months before the COP21. So I think it's quite interesting also to see the similarity of what we are facing today. And I think the OGCI per se is a proof point that the member companies at least, and potentially all the oil and gas industry, is also moving toward putting the climate challenge on top of the priority and continue to do so. So OGCI per se is an organization that is gathering, as of today, 12 member companies representing 30% of the oil and gas production. It's an initiative that is CEO-led, i.e. the CEO are really deep hands in the governance structure of the OGCI and making it happen, and so making also the decision process quick and efficient. It means also to be additional to what each of the member companies is already doing. So we are looking at the difficult to abate solution because we don't want to repeat or to replicate what our member companies are already doing or what the market is offering. We're more here to try to identify areas where we can scale up solution by regrouping strengths and forces of the member companies that compose the OGCI. And one other particularity I think that OGCI bring is that it's a coalition of international companies and national companies. So we also bring together different sensitiveness, different geographical footprint, different mean of action as well. But all of us together is making quite a very powerful tool to tackle the climate change, to accelerate the low carbon transition. So what OGCI is doing is to try to identify the low carbon solution where the combination of skill sets brought by our member companies could make a difference to scale up the solution. So for instance, we look at the CCUS industry, which is obviously an area where we could definitely bring unique combination of skill set, being the subsurface expertise, of course, the long-term vision, complex project management, multi-stakeholder party. All of that are unique and from the oil and gas industry and are needed to scale up the CCUS industry. And we also tackle other areas that are extremely difficult to tackle as of today, such as the energy efficiency in transport, and mainly in HDV, so heavy duty vehicle, the marine transport, the airlines. We also look at the methane detection and reduction actions, as well as other opportunities such as in the natural climate solution. And one of the key achievements OGCI made is the creation of the climate investment, which is a 1 billion plus fund that is taking equity share into innovation solution, into startups and projects that are directly linked with the topics I was mentioning just earlier, being mainly CCUS, methane, and transport efficiency. So when you look at the various achievements as of today and the commitment that the member companies have taken, beyond, of course, the creation of the fund, that is a very powerful tool to kickstart some of the solution, others are also related to committing the member companies toward some targets. So we have set up, for instance, a methane target back in 2018, which aims to reduce the methane intensity of the gas value chain that is under operation by our member companies by 1/5 up to 1/3, which is quite a significant improvement considering that the baseline was already very low for member companies. We've also launched last year an instrument that was the CCUS Kickstarter, which aimed to enable hubs around the world to capture CO2 emission and to store it or use them. And again, here we bring the expertise as well as the technical and the financial capacity of our member companies. And we aim to continue to deliver that, and the CEO are really behind delivering another carbon intensity target to demonstrate that the OGCI member company stands by and don't consider that the climate challenge is a luxury that we can pick and choose whenever we want, but we have to fight and to continue to fight whatever happens. And of course, the coronavirus crisis and the oil price crisis bring us back to what is essential: health, safety, and environment, as it has always been in the oil and gas industry. So clearly, this is something that it's a strong message that we're receiving, and we need to deliver the impact. When it comes to the SDG question, I think it's the ESG question, sorry. It's a very interesting question. I think here, again, we have been quite innovative within OGCI because we do from the start a joint reporting according to different methodology that we have set up across the member companies. But we also have a third-party verification that is coming from an external party checking that the data that we're sharing are as accurate as possible, including the target and the reach of the target. And on the other side, we are also collaborating with a number of universities, NGOs, institutions, such as the IEA or Environmental Defense Fund or the UNEP, to scale up solutions that enable to have more and more accurate information when it comes to the climate footprint of the oil and gas industry. So to give you an example, we have a joint program with the UN and the Environmental Defense Fund to test and try technologies to detect and to measure methane emission. And of course, all these programs continue at full speed, and we continue to explore areas where we could be additional, as I mentioned earlier. So I hope that gives a brief highlight of where we are. I'm very happy to pursue the discussion during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julian. Thanks a lot for this overview of OGCI, particularly relevant as a sort of light that marks the path, unifying all the major companies in such a big effort. So without further delay, I'd like to pass the word to Jaime Martinez-Juez, as we said before, Technology Corporate Venture Executive Director. And I think, let me just say that we're very glad to hear the experience of Repsol. Repsol is a very dear company, I think, to all of us who are working in energy transitions because of being the first one to announce the 2050 carbon neutrality plan. So in that respect, I think that we all have to recognize that that was a light that gave a lot of hope in terms of what an oil, gas, and integrated company can do as a commitment towards climate change. Jaime, they're all yours.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Arpel. It's really good to be here after a while and to find again my old friends like Miguel and all of you guys. Thank you, thank you. Well, I would like to just share what we think that is a marathon with a lot of sprints that we began a long time ago. I mean, I'm talking no less than maybe 20 years. We were the first company, oil and gas company in the world to support the Kyoto Protocol. Who reminds the Kyoto Protocol? Well, we okay, and we support that then because we thought since the very beginning that it was going to be a real issue, and it was going to be the carbon issue is going to be a very, very important issue in our future. So to be an energy transitioner is not something that is just a short time issue, is a long time issue. But you have 3 items that they are really important for you, and I
apologize for interrupting you. Are we seeing the slides from Jaime? I am not at the moment.
No, I'm not seeing.
Okay. Maybe somebody's working on it, or does it depend on Jaime? It depends on Jaime. Okay. Can you try to see if you can go back to presentation mode?
Yep.
Y Jaime, por favor, ahí tenés que compartir pantalla. Estás compartiendo, pero estamos viendo, creo que otra pantalla.
Yep, compartir. Sorry about that.
Estás compartiendo.
So,
no. Seleccionar PowerPoint.
You should go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, well, you were there.
Ahí.
Okay, thank you.
Ahí?
No.
No, ahí no.
PowerPoint and then presentation mode in the PowerPoint, please. Full screen if you can.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Sorry
like
about
this.
this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, then. So the idea is that what I wanted to present is, okay, the main idea is going straight to the point. You have to be very clear about your commitments, and we launched a commitment quite strong last December, saying, okay, we are going to be neutral. And in that time, it looked like a little disruptive. So, I mean, it was a surprise. I was in a DGCI meeting precisely in London, and my colleagues asked me, hey, how are you going to do this? I mean, you are sure about that? Because we have been thinking about this during the last time, and are you sure that you're going to be neutral for 2050? And we said, yes, it's the only way to set a very strong commitment that gives you the strength to try to go ahead. And how we are going to do that? Well, first of all, you have to be very clear about not only the commitment in the long term. You have to, how are you going to be measured that commitment during the different milestones that you are going to have in the future? So, well, we said, okay, we are this commitment in the long term, but at the same time, every 10 years, every 5 years, we are going to have a commitment and targets regarding reducing emissions. And we said, okay, in 2025, we will reduce at 10% our index of climate index. In 2013, 20%, and so on. And we said to the stakeholders, okay, you have to track us, you have to follow us, and try to support us in this track, because we are going to deliver very detailed data how we are going to try to do that. We are working in energy efficiency. Of course, we think that we support the idea about carbon pricing, like a really good signal in order to implement and invest renewables and invest in new technologies in order to abate the CO2 emissions in our refineries, in our petrochemical sites, in our upstream sites. So the carbon pricing is really good to have that. We are working in CCUS as well, like, well, another technology, yeah, another option in order to do that. And of course, we are investing in renewable energy. We are going to do a massive investment in renewable energy for the next years. We are really convinced that this mixture of, well, clear milestones, a clear commitment, a clear targets, is the best mixture in order to do that. But the last ingredient to do that and to try to do this energy transition, really trusty one, is to disclosure a lot of your data. We've been doing that in many of ESG reports, in annual basis, in international basis, with different standards. And for example, CDP, that has been one of the more demanding reporting, that they do have to disclosure a really massive detail of your emissions, your data, your investments in renewables, and so on. Well, they decide that last year that we have a minus score that is the highest in the oil and gas companies. So, or there are some kind of investments associations or agents that they say that we are one of the strongest companies regarding our policy, our governance, our targets, and so on. So when you think which are the companies that in the oil and gas sector are more committed to this energy transition, well, you will find us in that. For sure, there are another oil and gas companies that they are doing this journey with us, like Total, like BP, like Shell. Well, some of them that they are working with us in this path. But for sure, you have to have a clear target, commitment, targets in the milestones, different initiatives that you have to follow them and you have to track to them, methane, zero routine flare gas, and so on. And at the same time, disclosure. You have to build up the trust in your stakeholders through this disclosing issue, like Julien mentioned. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime. Very clear message that will help us to wrap up the session at the end. We're running a little bit short of time, so maybe what we can do is invite the audience to start writing their questions, and we will take whatever we can, while we go around with one very quick question that I would like to ask all of you in the same order, possibly starting from Tor, which is, if you, in this time of coronavirus, we all have somehow diminished our formal relationship, in the sense that this seeing each other supports a more human type of interchange and relationship. So if you have to say something that you really think it's a must do from your point of view, more than just the corporate or the organizations that you represent, a must do for energy transitions, or something that you would not like to see given up in this moment of crisis. We start from Tor, and if you can really keep it to one concept on one sentence, then we can leave more time for the Q&A questions. Thank you very much. Tor.
Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The need to minimize emissions and limit the temperature increase is also a global challenge, and no country and no region can deliver on its own. Okay. So we have to work in common, and I think we also have to really put carbon pricing in the front seat, because it's the power of the markets. Bring that into the emission reductions, making energy efficiency more attractive, and lower carbon energy sources more competitive. That's an important element. And the third point is really, how do we measure emissions from our industry? Most are at present measuring the scope 1, the emissions from producing hydrocarbons. There is a strong push for expanding on that into scope 2 and 3, measuring emissions from also our products. So that's something that should be addressed and will be addressed by the companies going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Silvina, your wish list, or one point in your wish list, please. We can't hear you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Difficult this, but I think if I have to choose one aspect, I would focus on the commitment to just transitions. Thinking this process is called to lead us towards really environmentally sustainable economies, but societies. So I think we should devote care and attention to key process aspects related to that. And I'm thinking, for example, about access to affordable energy and sustainable growth in emerging developing countries. I think it is important to think about that maybe we will require further gradual improvements or parallel international support for decarbonization trends. And maybe we will focus on not only retention, but redeployment and reskilling of our human capital. So we are going to need support. We need to work in collaboration.
Indeed, thank you very much. Just transitions and human capital. Julien, your top item on Julien Perez wish list.
Well, if my Christmas list for climate, I would say maybe two things, if you allow me. One, I think Jaime and Tor made it very, very clear. I think the valuation of carbon is incredibly important, because it sends the right economic signal to every economic agent to take their own decision. It's a matter also of making sure that the money that is generating by those carbon value mechanism, being a tax or being a trading scheme, is appropriately used to make sure that you're not creating any distortion in the market, and particularly for the people where the energy bill is a significant one, and also allowing, of course, by that mean collaboration within the countries and money transfer through international schemes. I think that one is extremely important. There will be no one unique carbon price across the world. I think that's clear and that's a given. However, having multiple mechanisms that could be linked between each other, thanks to potentially, the Paris rulebook that was to be decided at the COP26, is something that is, for me, really the top priority. I think also building on what Silvana was sharing, one piece of human capital that is quite interesting to work on is the educational package, because it's clear that the next generations will have to deal with the climate challenge much stronger than what we have to do today, and training those people to be ready for mitigation and adaptation is of utmost importance. And unfortunately, I don't see sufficient robust training delivered by universities across the world, and particularly in the developing countries. So I think here, having again our companies and the stakeholders who are here present today to join forces and to bring those educational package back to the young generation is something that will help for sure in the next decades.
Well, thank you very much. A very relevant point, that of education, and possibly problem-oriented solving type of education based or focused on the SDGs, and that can be an excellent roadmap for education of the future generation that will have such a hard task on climate. Indeed, thank you very much, Julien. And Jaime, your wish list, if you were to decide what to do next, what would you do?
Well, I think that, well, it has been mentioned previously by Julien, but I have just two issues. One of them is regarding carbon pricing. If we could have some kind of global figure regarding that, or I don't mind if it's breakdown in different sectors, by different technologies, by different countries, by different regions, wherever, but at least some kind of figure regarding carbon pricing, which indicates us how we could allocate in the more efficient way our investments, how we could do that, and how to try to avoid some kind of developments regarding R&D or wherever. It will be really, really, really fruitful for us. I know that this is a wishful thinking, but many people is working on that. It will be it could give some kind of guidance to the policymakers regarding taxes and this kind of problems when we try to leverage different sectors. Carbon pricings, it will be a really good measure. The other one is, we think we should try to work regarding carbon neutrality in technology. We should be neutral in technology approaches. I mean, we should try to avoid this kind of bias when we are in the administrations, in the policymakers, when they say, okay, this technology is really good. There is no silver bullets in this world. There is any kind of solution that resolves everything in every place, in every situation. And we should try to have this kind of different and random of different technologies with different level of developments in different countries in order to solve different situations. And we should try to have to push the best technology in the best situation, and not to say, okay, power is better here, electricity or wherever. No. We should try to be able to choose a random of different technologies in order to do this and to do that in a faster way.
Okay, thank you very much, Jaime. Before, we have 10 minutes left, and what we would like to do is go around again with each one of you to ask you about the role of ARPEL. What do you think ARPEL should have as role in the region and in general in terms of energy transitions? And then I think that the wrap up will not be that easy, because concepts that you've mentioned are many. But one thing that I would like to say up front is that the reason why many of us have insisted on the S of energy transitions is exactly what Jaime was saying, and Julien mentioned it as well. The fact that There is not one single solution. There is not one size fits all. There is not sage on stage. It's everybody together finding the best solution, maybe with supranational bodies, but focused on solving problems, especially, as Silvina was mentioned, for emerging economies that cannot be left behind, as we've done for the Kyoto Protocol a long time ago, the pollutant pay principle, and the fact that we do have to envisage differences of economies up front. And with that spirit of cooperation that possibly this dramatic virus has left us with, we want to pursue and continue on the plurality of this energy transition. So if you're with me again, please, Thor, if you can start on the role of Arpel, and then we will pass on the word to Miguel at the end of the circuit. Thank you very much, Thor.
Thank you. WPC are representing countries, not companies, as you are. But we are really proud to have been associated with Arpel for so many years. We have many common members, and we can see that Arpel is doing a great job in keeping cooperation and dialogue between the South American and Caribbean countries going, particularly through difficult times as it has been doing for over 50 years. So you can be proud of your long history as well. Everybody's issues are similar, really, and we can share solutions.
Right.
One area that you really are in front of the rest is within biofuels utilization, and this region can lead the world in bringing that forward. And we as WPC would like to continue working with you on these and other issues in any setting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thor, for this specification on the cooperation with Arpel and the long existing relationship. Silvina, how do you see the role of Arpel, especially being from the region?
Okay. I think I really think Arpel is doing a great job. Especially, I think the president of Arpel is doing a great job. If you give me a chance. But just a joke. And I think Arpel can be very relevant for the production of information, of new information. Companies and countries need to make informed decisions, especially in some aspects or terms where we are just starting. And I think Arpel is can be very relevant as well in letting us know which companies or who are doing it better, solving different problems. The other thing I think is too important for the job is to focus on creating networks. I think we can learn a lot from each other.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Silvina, for this final comment on Arpel. Julien, from outside of the region.
Yeah, I think, well, I agree with what Todd and Silvina just said. Maybe if I wanted to build on that, I think there is a space clearly for regions, to take the leadership on climate. It's difficult, I guess, for some of the existing regions that are quite focusing on climate, that's being as innovative as could be Latin America, for instance, or as it's happening in Southeast Asia. So I feel that maybe Arpel could have a role of catalyzing those innovation through the different companies that are playing around in Latin America to bring those low carbon solutions up front. And of course, the knowledge sharing is clearly one of the key areas, and maybe also to build back on my wish list about this educational package that might be gathered and might be delivered. Arpel could potentially be a sandbox for driving forces and bringing the young generation at the speed of the challenge that is ahead of us. So yeah.
We're hearing you on that topic. Thank you very much, Julian. Jaime, with all the enthusiasm that you have the last word on the role of Arpel.
Well, in my case, it's really easy to say that. I mean, I used to be I'm former chairman of the climate change working group, and it's like to come back home. I mean, I was always deeply convinced that Arpel plays a really key role in the region. I mean, if you want to know what is happening in the world, and you work in the oil and gas industry, and you want to know the latest topic about something regarding sustainability, energy transition, safety, and so on, you have to be in Arpel. I mean, it's the place where to do a real constant benchmark with the rest of the companies, and they play this kind of, well, I would say, insistable and key role, making the interface between the very global and the very local. And this common mindset of the region, and is really very well played by Arpel as an organization. So I am really a fan of Arpel and the way they do things.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Thank you very much to you all. I think that it is my time to say goodbye to you. I think that what we're taking away are very important messages, and especially before giving the floor to Miguel for his last conclusions. Of course, thanking Arpel for this and for sharing this open and enthusiastic discussion. Maybe at the beginning of this webinar, we were somehow worried that because of the crisis, we would find ourselves in a situation of somehow, I don't want to say sadness, but decreased motivations. I don't think that that is the case. I think that we have to take on board what Jaime said about disclosure, just transition mechanism from Silvina, which is also part of the Green European Deal. The just mechanism has been envisaged as the mechanism to go ahead. Education on behalf of Julien, and what Thor said about keeping the collaboration, because there is not one place which is just doing something differently. It can always draw from the learnings and from the best practices of every other region that has been doing that at the same time or before. As Jaime said, we have a long history. It has been a marathon. So Miguel, thank you very much on behalf of all of us, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Well, thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Elena, for the excellent job and contributions you made. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, more housekeeping than any other things. Remember the survey I mentioned? You can check that in the chat box, right? It was put at 10:11. Here is the link, okay? It will take less than 2 minutes. And they are important questions because they relate to some priorities that Arpel should be considering in the work that we have identified in the energy transitions white paper. That's first. Second, just for you to know, the audio will be has been recorded, the slides and the speakers' resumes of this webinar, plus the consolidated results of the survey will be posted in our Arpel website and duly announced to everyone. So you can share with your colleagues to see what was discussed, either the slides, the whole discussion, or just the results of the survey. But we count on your networking. Remember, sharing is caring. So thank you all, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.